I'm Alicia Vaughan. I'm the Director of Student Affairs at BASIS Flagstaff, and education is kind of a second career for me. I started out as a scientist and worked on the Mars rover mission for 8 years at the Jet Propulsion Lab in LA and then here at the USGS before I decided I really wanted to be a science teacher. And then I got to working on senior projects, which I'll tell you about tonight, and I think this is where high achievement and creativity kind of meet for some pretty fantastic results. So I'm here talking to you about what I love, and that is helping students investigate what they are passionate about. Every year I see students grow tremendously through their investigations and involvement, and the whole process and what they go through is really inspiring. And if there's one thing I could leave you with, it would be that feeling of inspiration, that young people can really be engaged and contribute meaningfully to their communities. So I'll start with this crazy idea. What if we gave seniors 3 months off to do anything they wanted? And if you're thinking about the maybe stereotypes of teenagers, you can imagine them sitting around playing video games. 3 months will fly by. Or maybe here in Flagstaff, they go to the mountain every day. They could easily become a ski bum. If we think about a good case, they might get a job, take on some more responsibility, save some money. Definitely a good thing to do. Or they could spend 3 months investigating something they always wanted to know more about, like teenage mutant phytoplankton. A very catchy blog title. This is one of our students last year who grew her own cultures of phytoplankton and then polluted them with crude oil to see how well the phytoplankton could clean up the mess. And they did a great job. So did she. So what they are, these senior projects, are opportunities for motivated students to learn more about any field they're interested in pursuing. And that's really the beauty, is that there's no restrictions on topic. They can truly learn more about anything they want to. And what's cool to see every year is that these students who come up through the very same curriculum do such different things every year. Their interests are so varied. Everything from art to psychology, architecture, and like traditional kind of science projects. They run the gamut every year. So there's also this opportunity for students to direct their own learning. And there's a lot of research out there about students having this opportunity to direct their own learning. We know that young people are naturally curious, and if we give them this opportunity to learn more about something they're very interested in, they're a lot more engaged with the subject matter, as you can imagine. Instead of having a teacher talk at them all day long, they get to direct their own, what they want to learn more about. And not only do they become more engaged with their subject matter, the results are so much more meaningful to them. So our senior projects are kind of giving them this opportunity. There's this great movie out I just wanted to put a plug in for. It's a documentary about schools across the nation who are experimenting with ways to put student-directed learning in their curriculum, sometimes overhauling their entire high school curriculum. It was recently screened in town by the Flagstaff Launch Group, and it's worth checking out. So of course, by way of example, I've got to share some stories with you about some of our senior projects. So this is Rachel, and she was really passionate about social justice, and she came to me in 11th grade. I'm so excited to do my senior project. I have to do something, with social justice, and I'd really like to work with the Arizona Innocence Project. So she did. The title of her project was Faulty Forensics and False Convictions. So she took a really good look at how forensic science principles and methods actually lead to false convictions. It was fascinating. I didn't know myself that forensic science does not follow the traditional methods of peer review that traditional science does, and a lot of the methods they use are inaccurate. And a lot of jurors and judges don't know the difference, except for DNA. Another plug for DNA, because it's real science. But a lot of the other things they use are just simply faulty. And so they do lead to a lot of false convictions. And then she did get to work with a lawyer on an actual case. And what she did was, in helping this lawyer compile a brief, she had to go through hundreds of pages of trial manuscripts and find evidence to support the brief that this client, that the lawyer was writing. So she got to contribute directly to a case. In the end, this client was so thrilled with the brief. He was like, I'm going to frame it. I'm going to read it every day for the rest of my life. Thank you so much for doing this. So you can imagine how that made Rachel feel to get to play a direct role in changing someone's life like that through her senior project. And then in the summer after she graduated, that guy actually won his case and was exonerated. How are we able to give seniors 3 months off, to go do whatever they want? Study what they are interested in. And it all starts with academic rigor. If you've heard anything about our school, then you probably have heard. It's tough. It's very challenging. Our students work very hard. They have to take the AP classes. They have to take the AP exams. They do take a lot of tests. But that gives them really solid academic foundations. So they're going forward in their senior year with a lot of confidence in their knowledge. Moving on. Then another key piece is that they meet their graduation requirements early, and that's what allows them to take the 3 months off to go on this path of investigation. And then, of course, we provide them the freedom and the support. We're guiding them through the process. We're helping them make connections, checking in with them all along the way. And every year, it leads to such inspired and varied creative ideas. So another story, because those are the best part. This is Karissa. She was really curious, what could she do with physics? She loved physics. What is applied physics? What does physics research look like? Should I study this in college? Those are the kind of questions she was asking. She was looking at what physics professors around locally were doing, and she ended up getting really interested in the LIGO instrument. And there's a group at Embry-Riddle working on the LIGO instrument, which stands for Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. So it's the largest, I think, interferometer in the world, and it's trying to detect gravitational waves. So there's a group at Embry-Riddle that studies them. That's what her project ended up being called, Unraveling the Early Universe. Will gravitational waves help us detect cosmic strings? And they were looking at trying to detect or trying to understand the limits of what that instrument could measure, so kind of separating the signal from the noise. And it was a lot of really upper-level math. That's just a snapshot from her blog where she's explaining what she's doing. And she had some solid math. I mean, she did take AP Calculus and AP Physics, but she really had to stretch herself on this project to understand what the instrument was measuring and how to work with the data and interpret it. So she definitely pushed herself, but contributed significantly to their research effort and got to present not only to her local school community about her project, but she got to present at Embry-Riddle as well on the work that she did. So I think my favorite thing about these senior projects is that by their very nature, they're community building. Students that are doing projects are out there in the community. They're not even required to be at school. So they're working with local youth on environmental education, for example. They're working with local professionals and scientists. They're giving free music lessons. They're working with Holocaust survivors to help tell their stories. And those are just a few examples of the ways that our students are, engaging in their community and contributing to those disciplines. Last story. This is Natalia. We've heard a lot tonight about this, so I love how her story kind of feeds right into the theme of tonight. She really loved STEM subjects and art. Her senior year, she was on my robotics team and was the leader of our build team that year for the robot. She was also a super talented artist whose work was all over the school and in local exhibits. And she grew up with that thinking that these two subjects were at odds. And she was getting ready to go to college and feeling she was going to have to choose between whether she wanted to do science and engineering or something like that, or continue with the art. And so she wanted to have the senior project be an opportunity to try to merge these two. So she got an internship or a volunteer. She volunteered at Lowell Observatory. And so her project was called Read by the Stars. And she decided, I'll get this internship at Lowell. I'm going to try to learn something about astronomy, self-study, and learn about the history there. And every time, as I learn new things, I'm going to let that inspire a new piece of art. and she wanted to experiment with different mediums and get out of her comfort zone a little bit with art, which she did. I just had to put a snapshot of her blog because she had a catchy title too. Why so serious? They're so clever with these. So that's what she did. And I have to share a couple of her pieces. She was adamant from the beginning that she hated abstract art. Well, I got to do one because I said I was going to get uncomfortable and do this. So when she learned about the discovery of Pluto, she did this piece of abstract art that really highlighted the plates that were used in the discovery of Pluto, if you know anything about that. She hated this piece. I love it. It sits in my office today. Her favorite is this one. And that was her favorite kind of art. She really loved to make this digital art, and I don't know what kind of software tool she had. But one of the things she loved about her time at Lowell was hearing all the different stories behind the constellations. She would interact with tour groups a lot and people from around the world. And so this is the hair, I guess, that sits at Orion's feet and was apparently his favorite food. And the Chinese call it the moon bunny. So that's how she got this idea. So when I asked her at the end of her time, what did you learn? You know, aside from you've learned a little bit about astronomy and confirmed your hatred of abstract art, she said art can help communicate science to the general public. And she said, you know, there are a lot of people who may not care about the nitty-gritty details or the technicalities behind scientific discoveries, but they still can appreciate discovery and, you know, be inspired by the natural world through art. And I was like, wow, you're 18, are you kidding? That was really profound. I think about what I was doing when I was 18. Nothing like that. So I wanted to just take a moment and talk about education in the media because it's a hot topic. There are a lot of opinions about what we should be doing or shouldn't be doing in educational systems and, you know, all of that. And Ken Robinson, who has one of the most famous TED Talks ever, one of the 10 most watched, he said education goes deep with people, like religion or money. People are very attached to their opinions about the way we should or should not do things. In the same talk, he said, the school systems today are educating students out of creativity. And in that movie that I mentioned to you earlier, that Beyond Measure movie, a teacher in that movie said, education has become all about filling in a bubble and not unlocking human potential. And I have to say, I told you, our school is based on academic rigor, and our kids fill in a lot of bubbles. They take a lot of tests. But I hope that I've also shown you that we give them this opportunity to direct their own learning and do what they want to learn more about at the end in their senior year. So just to kind of wrap up their stories, Rachel is at Baird Honors College, and her major is philosophy, morality, politics, and law. And I was like, man, they crafted that major for you. It's amazing. And she hopes to be a Supreme Court justice someday. Karissa is actually at Stanford starting her sophomore year, and she went there not even realizing that some of the people, the original scientists that worked on that LIGO instrument are at Stanford. And so when she got there, she was like, hey, I did this senior project. Could I volunteer? And they were like, sure. So she volunteered in their lab for a semester, and when I saw her at Christmas, she said, they just hired me for an internship in their lab. And she is actually not even a physics major. So there it is. And Natalia is at the University of Pennsylvania as a mechanical engineering major, so she went the STEM way. Art is still a beloved hobby of hers. She actually works on a team that builds electric race cars to compete against other collegiate teams in the country, and they won first in the nation last year. So she was really excited to tell me that, and she thanked me for that senior year robotics experience, and that pretty much made my year. It was awesome. But they're just 3 examples of so many. As our school grows, students are taking this opportunity every year to direct their own learning and contribute to their community. So thank you for hanging around, and I hope you feel inspired.